The rain started before the funeral and did not stop. Marcus Hill stood beside his mother, watching people arrive one after another. Black cars filled the street. Men in expensive suits spoke in low voices. Women wearing dark glasses hugged each other, pretending to cry. Something about it all felt strange to Marcus. His father, William Hill, was not supposed to have this kind of crowd. To Marcus, his father had always been a quiet man. He owned a small business, lived simply, and avoided attention. He never talked about money or powerful friends. He worked hard, came home late, and always said that peace was better than fame. But today did not look peaceful. Marcus noticed how some people looked around carefully, like they were not there for grief, but for information. A few men watched him and his mother longer than normal. It made him uncomfortable. His mother held his arm tightly. She had not slept since William died. Her face looked tired, but she refused to cry in public. "He worked too hard," she whispered. "Your father carried many burdens." Marcus nodded, but something inside him felt unsettled. His father's death had been sudden. A heart attack, they said. Quick, unexpected. But Marcus could not shake the feeling that something was missing. As the funeral ended and people slowly began to leave, a woman approached them. Marcus had never seen her before. She wore a black dress, elegant and expensive. Her makeup was perfect despite the rain. She did not look sad. She looked calm, too calm. "My name is Vanessa," she said softly. "I was close to your father." Marcus felt his mother's hand tense around his arm. Vanessa offered polite condolences, but her eyes moved around the area as if she was studying everything. When she looked at Marcus, her expression changed slightly, almost like she was measuring him. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said. But her voice did not carry sorrow, only certainty. Before Marcus could ask anything, she walked away, stepping into a luxury car waiting nearby. The car drove off quickly, leaving Marcus with more questions than answers. That night, everything changed. A lawyer called. Marcus learned something that made his stomach drop. His father was not just a small businessman. William Hill owned properties, investments, and companies hidden under different names. The total value was far beyond anything Marcus imagined. His father had been a secret billionaire. And worse, he had died without leaving a will. No instructions, no clear ownership. Everything would now be decided in court. Marcus sat in silence after the call ended. None of it made sense. Why would his father hide something like this? Why keep his own family in the dark? His mother looked shocked, almost hurt. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "I swear, I didn't know." Over the next few days, more strange things happened. Bank accounts were frozen until legal matters were resolved. Unknown people called asking questions about William's businesses. Lawyers suddenly became difficult to reach. Then Marcus overheard something he was never meant to hear. Late at night, while walking past the kitchen, he heard a familiar voice coming from his mother's phone on speaker. It was Vanessa. "He's gone now," she said calmly. "Things will move faster." Marcus froze. His mother sounded confused, asking what she meant, but Vanessa only replied, "Some people were never meant to handle power." The call ended. Marcus felt cold. Weeks later, photos appeared online. Vanessa was seen attending events with a powerful tycoon named Richard Kane, a man known for controlling large companies and destroying competitors. She smiled beside him like she had already stepped into a new life. At the same time, Marcus's world began falling apart. His mother received devastating news from the doctor. Cancer. Treatment needed to start immediately. Medical bills arrived faster than answers. Marcus realized something terrifying. While his family struggled to survive, someone else was moving closer to his father's hidden empire. And deep inside, Marcus felt a growing fear. His father had left behind more than money. He had left secrets, and someone was making sure Marcus never discovered the truth. After the funeral, silence filled the Hill house. The phone stopped ringing. Visitors stopped coming. The sympathy people once showed slowly disappeared. What remained were questions, bills, and fear. Marcus spent most of his days between the hospital and his father's old office. His mother had started treatment, and the doctor spoke carefully, choosing words that sounded hopeful but uncertain. Marcus tried to stay strong for her, But every night, he felt the pressure growing heavier. Nothing about his father's life made sense anymore. The small office Marcus remembered from childhood now felt different. Drawers were locked. Files were missing. Computers had been wiped clean. It was as if someone had already been there, removing pieces of the past. Marcus sat at his father's desk one evening, staring at a photo of them together from years ago. His father was smiling, relaxed, like a man without secrets. "Who were you really?" Marcus whispered. The lawyer explained that since there was no will, the estate would go through a long legal process. Until then, most assets were frozen. Marcus could not access money, properties, or business accounts. Yet news articles began appearing online. They spoke about companies connected to William Hill, construction firms, technology investments, real estate projects in different cities. Each article revealed another layer Marcus had never known existed. His father had built an empire quietly, and now powerful people were circling it. One afternoon, Marcus received a call from an unknown number. The man on the other side spoke quickly. "Your father trusted me once. We should not meet in public." Marcus hesitated but agreed. They met at a small cafe far from the city center. The man introduced himself as Daniel Reed, a former employee of William Hill. He looked nervous, constantly checking his surroundings. "Your father was careful," Daniel said. "He knew people would come after his work one day." Marcus leaned forward. "What people?" Daniel didn't answer directly. Instead, he slid a small metal key across the table. "Storage unit. Your father kept things there. Documents he didn't want anyone else to see." Marcus's heart started beating faster. That night, he drove to the storage facility. The place was quiet and almost empty. Inside the unit were boxes filled with files, contracts, and old notebooks. Marcus opened them slowly, unsure what he would find. What he discovered shocked him. Many companies were not officially in his father's name. They were registered under partners, assistants, and even strangers. But the signatures, the instructions, and the financial records all led back to William Hill. His father had hidden ownership on purpose, to stay invisible. As Marcus continued searching, one name appeared again and again. Richard Kane, the same tycoon, now seen everywhere with Vanessa. Marcus felt a chill run through him. The connection could not be a coincidence. Kane's companies had worked closely with his father's businesses for years. Investments, shared projects, joint deals. But suddenly, after William's death, those connections were being erased. Files ended abruptly. Contracts were terminated. Ownership changed hands quickly. Someone was cleaning the history. Marcus realized something disturbing. Vanessa had not simply moved on after the funeral. She had moved closer to the center of power, to a man already connected to his father's hidden empire. At the hospital later that night, Marcus watched his mother sleep. Machines beeped softly around her. She looked smaller now, weaker than he had ever seen her. He felt anger rising inside him. While his family struggled, others were building new lives using what his father left behind. The next morning, Marcus received another message from Daniel. "Be careful," it read. "Your father's death raised questions. Some people don't want those questions answered." Marcus looked at the storage key still in his hand. For the first time, he allowed himself to think the unthinkable. What if his father's death was not just bad luck? What if someone benefited from it? Outside, the city moved like nothing had changed. But Marcus knew the truth now. His father's empire was real, and someone powerful was already trying to take it before Marcus understood how it worked. The deeper he looked, the more dangerous it became. And he had only just begun. Life became a race Marcus could not win. Every morning started at the hospital. Every afternoon ended with lawyers, paperwork, or phone calls that led nowhere. His mother's treatment was expensive, and without access to his father's money, Marcus felt trapped. Bills arrived faster than he could pay them. Savings disappeared quickly. Still, he refused to stop searching. The documents from the storage unit stayed hidden in his apartment. Every night, Marcus studied them, trying to understand how his father's businesses worked. The more he learned, the clearer one thing became. William Hill had built everything carefully, as if he expected someone to try taking it after he was gone. And now that someone was close. News about Richard Kane appeared everywhere. Business magazines praised him as a genius investor. Photos showed him smiling beside Vanessa at charity events and private parties. She looked comfortable in that world, like she had always belonged there. Marcus felt anger every time he saw her face. One evening, after a long hospital visit, Marcus walked into the parking lot and froze. Vanessa was standing beside a black car, waiting. She looked calm, confident, untouched by stress or grief. For a moment, Marcus considered walking away, but she spoke first. "We need to talk." Marcus crossed his arms. "There's nothing to talk about." Vanessa sighed softly, like she was dealing with a child. "You're making things harder than they need to be." They sat inside the car while rain hit the windows. Vanessa spoke carefully, choosing every word. "I know your mother is sick," she said. "Treatment is expensive. I can help." Marcus stared at her, confused and angry at the same time. "Why would you help us?" "Because I cared about your father," she replied smoothly. "And because this situation doesn't need to become ugly." Then she explained her offer. Money for treatment. Enough to cover everything. Hospital bills, medication, even a new home if needed. But there was a condition. Marcus had to stop investigating his father's businesses. He had to step away from the legal fight and allow the estate to be handled quietly. "No more questions," Vanessa said. "No more digging." Marcus felt his chest tighten. The offer sounded generous, but something about it felt wrong. Too clean. Too easy. "You don't want peace," Marcus said slowly. "You want silence." Vanessa's smile faded slightly. "You don't understand the world your father lived in," she replied. "Some battles destroy people. I'm trying to save you from that." Marcus opened the car door and stepped out into the rain. "I'm not for sale," he said. For the first time, Vanessa's calm expression cracked. "You think this ends well for you?" she asked quietly. "Power doesn't forgive mistakes." Marcus walked away without answering. But the consequences came quickly. Within days, things began to change. A job interview Marcus was confident about suddenly disappeared. A bank delayed a small loan without explanation. A lawyer who had promised help stopped returning calls. Doors started closing one by one. Even friends became distant, uncomfortable around him. It felt like an invisible hand was pushing him out of every opportunity. Marcus realized he was being pressured. Not openly, not violently, just enough to make life difficult. At the hospital, he tried to hide his stress from his mother, but she noticed anyway. "You look tired," she said gently. "I'm fine, Marcus Lid." She studied him for a moment before speaking again. "Your father always said something. When people try to rush you, it means they're afraid of what happens if you take your time." Marcus stayed silent, thinking about her words. That night, he returned to the storage unit and opened one of the last unopened boxes. Inside was an old notebook written in his father's handwriting. Most pages contained numbers and notes, but one sentence stood out. "Real power stays hidden until it must protect itself." Marcus read it again and again. For the first time, he stopped feeling afraid. If Vanessa and Kane wanted him to stop looking, it meant he was getting close to something important, something they didn't want exposed. Marcus closed the notebook slowly. The fight was no longer about money or inheritance. It was about truth. And now he understood something clearly. His father had not left him helpless. He had left him clues. And somewhere inside those secrets was the reason powerful people were suddenly afraid of a man who had nothing left to lose. Marcus stopped rushing. For weeks, he had reacted to fear. Fear of losing money. Fear of losing his mother. Fear of losing everything his father built. But now he understood something important. Whoever was pressuring him wanted him tired, confused, and desperate. So he slowed down. Instead of chasing answers everywhere, he focused on the documents his father left behind. Every night, after visiting the hospital, Marcus sat quietly and studied the old files again. Patterns began to appear. Dates repeated. Transactions connected. Names returned again and again. And one detail stood out. Some decisions in the companies were approved by someone who was never officially listed as an owner. The signature appeared only as initials. Emer. Marcus searched through every record, but found no full name. No address. No public connection. Yet large transfers and major decisions always followed those initials. It meant one thing. His father had a silent partner, someone powerful enough to stay invisible. The next clue came unexpectedly. Daniel Reed, the former employee who had first helped Marcus, called late one night. His voice sounded nervous. "You need to stop asking questions in public," Daniel said quickly. "People are noticing." Marcus's heart tightened. "Then tell me what I need to know." It was a long silence before Daniel spoke again. "Your father didn't build that empire alone." They met the next day in an old office building that looked almost abandoned. Daniel kept the lights low and closed the blinds before speaking. "Your father trusted very few people," he said. "But there was one person he trusted completely. Someone who helped him move assets quietly when competitors became dangerous." Marcus leaned forward. "Who?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I never met them directly. Only heard the name once. Your father called them his insurance." Marcus felt a chill. Insurance against what? Against men like Richard Kane. The room went silent. Daniel explained that years ago, Kane and William Hill worked together on several projects. At first, the partnership was successful. But over time, Kane became more aggressive, buying companies through pressure and forcing smaller partners out. William had started moving ownership away from public records after that. He knew one day Kane might try to take everything, Daniel said. Marcus felt his mind racing. If that was true, then his father had prepared for this moment long before his death. But before Marcus could ask more, Daniel stood up suddenly. "I shouldn't have said this much," he muttered. "Be careful. If Kane learns you're looking for the silent partner, things will get worse." After Daniel left, Marcus sat alone, thinking. Insurance. A hidden partner. A person who could control access to the real empire. That night at the hospital, Marcus watched his mother sleep again. Her condition had improved slightly, but the treatments were exhausting. Seeing her like this reminded him why he could not stop. This was no longer just business. It was survival. The next morning, Marcus returned to the storage unit, searching for anything connected to the initials MR hours had passed with nothing useful. Frustration began to grow. Then he noticed something strange. An envelope hidden inside the back cover of one notebook. Inside was a single business card. No company name, no address, only a phone number and 2 letters printed in silver. MR. Marcus stared at it for a long time. His hands felt cold. His father had hidden this carefully, as if it was meant to be found only when necessary. But calling that number felt dangerous. If this person truly controlled access to the empire, then contacting them could change everything, or destroy what little Marcus still had. Later that evening, news broke online about Richard Kane acquiring another major company connected to William Hill's past investments. The speed of it made Marcus uneasy. Kane was moving quickly, like a man trying to finish something before time ran out. Before Marcus could think further, his phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering. A calm voice spoke on the other end. "I was wondering when you would find a card." Marcus's heart stopped. "Who is this?" he asked carefully. The voice remained calm. "A friend of your father," the person replied. "And possibly the only reason you still have chance." Marcus felt the weight of the moment settle around him. The silent partner had finally spoken. And deep down, Marcus knew one thing for certain. The game had just changed. Because if this person was truly his father's insurance, then Richard Kane was not the only powerful player in the story anymore. Marcus did not sleep that night. The voice on the phone stayed in his mind. Calm, controlled, confident. The person had not given a name, only instructions. "Do not speak about this call to anyone," the voice had said. "If your father trusted you enough to leave the card, then you already know this is dangerous." Marcus agreed, even though fear sat heavy in his chest. The next morning, he received a message with a time and location. A private office on the edge of the financial district. No company name, no sign outside the building. When Marcus arrived, everything felt quiet. Too quiet. A woman in her late 50s greeted him inside. Her posture was straight, her expression unreadable. She introduced herself simply as Margaret Ross. Emmer. Marcus realized immediately this was the silent partner. She studied him carefully before speaking. You look like your father when he first started fighting back." Marcus frowned. "Fighting who?" Margaret gave a small, tired smile. "People who believe power belongs only to them." She explained slowly. Years ago, William Hill had discovered that Richard Kane was using partnerships to gain control over companies quietly. Once he had enough influence, he pushed original owners out. William refused to play that game, so he built protection. Assets were divided, ownership hidden, final control placed in structures that could not be accessed without approval from both partners. Margaret had managed that system quietly for years. "And after your father died?" Marcus asked. Margaret's expression darkened. "Kane assumed he could take everything. He didn't realize your father planned for that possibility." Marcus felt hope for the first time in months. "Then why hasn't this stopped him already?" "Because you were missing," she replied calmly. "The system requires a legal heir willing to stand up." Marcus understood. His father had not left him money directly. He had left him responsibility. But the situation was already becoming public. Court hearings regarding William Hill's estate had begun. Vanessa appeared confidently beside Kane's legal team, claiming that William intended to restructure ownership before his death. She spoke smoothly, painting Marcus as inexperienced and emotional. Watching the footage online made Marcus's blood boil. She lied easily, but Margaret remained calm. "Truth takes longer," she said. "But when it arrives, it ends arguments." Over the next weeks, documents began surfacing in court. Old contracts, signed agreements, financial trails showing Kane's attempts to gain control after William's death. The judge ordered further investigation. For the first time, Kane's name appeared in negative headlines. The change was immediate. Business partners began distancing themselves. Investors asked questions. Kane's public confidence started to crack. And Vanessa noticed. One evening, Marcus found her waiting outside the hospital again. But this time, she looked different. Less certain. Less powerful. "You don't understand what you're doing," she said quickly. "This will destroy everyone." Marcus looked at her quietly. "You mean it will destroy him?" Vanessa's voice softened. "I tried to help you before. You tried to buy my silence," Marcus replied. She hesitated, then spoke words that surprised him. "I didn't think Kane would go this far," she admitted. "After your father died, things moved too fast. I thought I was choosing security." Marcus saw something new in her eyes, fear. For the first time, she was no longer in control. But Marcus felt no satisfaction, only clarity. "You made your choice," he said calmly. As investigations deepened, more secrets surfaced. Hidden transfers, pressure deals, companies forced into sales under questionable conditions. Kane's empire, once untouchable, began showing cracks. The media called it a business dispute. Marcus knew it was something else. It was exposure. At the hospital, his mother slowly grew stronger. Treatment was working, though recovery would take time. One evening, she held Marcus's hand and smiled faintly. "Your father always believed truth protects itself," she said. Marcus nodded, finally understanding what his father had meant. This fight was never about revenge. It was about bringing light into places built on silence. And now the truth was spreading faster than anyone could stop it. But as Marcus left the hospital that night, his phone buzzed with a new message from Margaret. "Be careful," it read. "Men like Kane don't fall quietly." Marcus looked up at the dark city skyline. The battle was turning in his favor. But deep down, he knew the most dangerous moment was still coming. The moment when a powerful man realized he was about to lose everything. The city felt different now. For months, Richard Kane's name had been spoken with respect and fear. He was known as a man who never lost. A man who turned every situation into profit. But now, headlines began to change. Questions replaced praise. Investigations replaced celebrations. Marcus watched it happen slowly, like a storm building in the distance. News reports spoke about financial reviews and legal disputes. Business partners started stepping away from Kane's companies. Investors demanded explanations. The empire that once looked solid now showed cracks everywhere. But Marcus knew this was the most dangerous time. People with power did not fall quietly. Margaret warned him again during one of their meetings. They sat in her quiet office, Papers spread across the table. Kane is losing control, she said calmly. And men like him become unpredictable when they feel cornered. Marcus nodded. He already felt the pressure growing again. Anonymous calls returned. Emails disappeared. Meetings were suddenly canceled without reason. Someone was still trying to make him step back. But this time, Marcus was not alone. Margaret had begun activating the protections his father created years ago. Ownership structures were revealed in court. Legal control shifted back toward William Hill's estate. Each new document weakened Kane's position further. The truth was becoming impossible to hide. Then came the breaking point. A former executive from one of Kane's companies came forward publicly. He described how businesses were pressured into selling below value. Contracts rewritten under threat of financial ruin. The story spread quickly across media platforms. Within days, regulators announced formal investigations. Kane's image began collapsing. Marcus saw the change even in Vanessa. She stopped appearing at public events. Her social media went silent. The confident woman from the funeral was gone. One evening, she called Marcus unexpectedly. Her voice sounded tired. "I made a mistake," she said quietly. Marcus stayed silent. "I thought power meant safety," she continued. "I didn't know how far he would go." Marcus remembered the day she offered money in exchange for silence. The calm way she spoke, believing everything could be controlled. And now? Marcus asked. "I just want this to end," she whispered. For a moment, Marcus almost felt sympathy. Almost. But too much had already happened. "Some things don't end quietly," he said before ending the call. Meanwhile, his personal life slowly improved. His mother's health continued to stabilize. She smiled more often now, her strength returning little by little. The hospital room that once felt heavy with fear now felt hopeful. But Marcus knew the fight was not over. One night, as he left Margaret's office, he noticed a black car parked across the street. The engine was running, lights off. The car drove away the moment Marcus looked at it. A warning. The next day, Kane finally appeared publicly. He denied all accusations, calling them misunderstandings and business rivalries. But Marcus noticed something in his eyes during the interview. Anger, not fear. Margaret noticed it too. "He still believes he can win," she said. "That makes him dangerous." Court hearings intensified. Evidence stacked higher each week. Financial trails connected decisions directly to Kane's leadership. Lawyers who once defended him began distancing themselves. The empire was falling piece by piece. Marcus stood outside the courthouse one afternoon, watching reporters rush past him. Months ago, he had been invisible, just a grieving son trying to survive. Now he was at the center of a battle powerful people could no longer control. And yet, he felt strangely calm. This was never about becoming rich. It was about protecting what his father built and proving that power without integrity eventually destroys itself. That evening, Marcus visited his father's grave for the first time since the funeral. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear. "I understand now," he said quietly. His father had not prepared him for comfort. He had prepared him for endurance. As Marcus turned to leave, his phone vibrated again. A message from Margaret appeared on the screen. "Final hearing scheduled. This ends soon." Marcus looked back at the grave one last time. The tycoon's fall had already begun. But the final moment, the moment when everything would be decided, was still ahead. And Marcus knew that sometimes victory came not when the enemy fell, but when the truth could no longer be buried. The final hearing arrived on a cold morning. Marcus stood outside the courthouse, watching people rush past him. Reporters gathered near the entrance, cameras ready. Months ago, he had walked into this building feeling lost and powerless. Today felt different. Not easier, but clearer. Everything that had happened, his father's death, the secrets, the pressure, the fear, had led to this moment. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. Lawyers spoke in careful voices. Documents were passed between tables. Every word felt heavy, like it carried years of hidden truth. Richard Kane sat quietly across the room. He looked older now, tired in a way Marcus had never seen before. The confidence that once surrounded him was gone. His legal team spoke less than before. They knew the evidence had grown too strong. Financial records, partnership agreements, and testimony from former executives had revealed the full picture. William Hill had anticipated betrayal long before it happened. The structures he built ensured that control of the empire could not be taken without exposing the truth. And now, the truth was finally visible. When the judge delivered the decision, the courtroom fell silent. Ownership of the remaining companies and assets would return to William Hill's legal heir. Investigations into Kane's business practices would continue separately. It was over. Marcus did not feel victory the way he expected. There was no excitement, no celebration, only a quiet sense of release, like a long breath finally leaving his chest. Outside, reporters shouted questions, but Marcus walked past them without answering. He had nothing left to prove. Later that day, he visited the hospital. His mother was sitting by the window, sunlight falling across her face. She looked stronger now, healthier than she had in months. When Marcus told her the outcome, she smiled softly. "Your father knew you would handle it," she said. Marcus shook his head. "I didn't know what I was doing most of the time." She laughed gently. Neither did he. He just refused to quit. For the first time since everything began, Marcus allowed himself to relax. The fear that once followed him everywhere had faded. The future no longer felt uncertain. In the weeks that followed, changes came slowly. Kane disappeared from public life as investigations continued. Companies once under his control were sold or restructured. Vanessa was rarely seen anymore. Rumors said she left the city, choosing privacy over attention. Marcus didn't try to find out more. Some chapters were better left closed. Instead, he focused on rebuilding, not just the business, but the purpose behind it. He studied his father's notes carefully, realizing that William Hill had never chased wealth for status. He built quietly to protect his family and create stability. Money had only been a tool. One evening, Marcus stood in the new office that would soon carry his father's name again. The city lights stretched across the skyline, bright and endless. Months ago, he had stood in darkness, unsure if he would survive the fight. Now he understood what his father had really left behind. Not money, not power, but resilience. The ability to stand firm when everything falls apart. Margaret visited him one last time before stepping away from the business. She smiled as she looked around the office. "Your father once told me something," she said. "He said real wealth is leaving your family stronger than you found them." Marcus nodded slowly. "I think I finally understand." That night, Marcus visited his father's grave again. The air was calm, the city quiet in the distance. "I thought you left us with problems," Marcus said softly. "But you left us with protection." He stood there for a moment longer, feeling peace for the first time since the funeral. The battle for the empire had ended, but the real victory was something simpler. His mother was healing. His family name was restored. And the secrets that once threatened to destroy them had become the reason they survived. As Marcus walked away, he realized something his father always knew. Power fades. Money changes hands. But truth, patience, and courage, those are the things that last. And in the end, that was the real inheritance.